and from world globe. You're all welcome to the Nigerian edition, the Nigerian virtual panel session, as part of the 1 month long Pivots 2023 Geothermal conference. And with me here is an array of panelists. My name is Princewill Okechukwu, the founder and CEO of 3 and 3 Consult Limited. And with me here is Elliot Ibie of Shell here in Nigeria. He's the current president of the Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists in Nigeria, followed by Professor Juliet Emudianuge. She's a professor of exploration geophysics at the Federal University of Petroleum Resources in Nigeria, followed by Mrs. Patricia Simon-Hart. She's CEO and Executive Director at Aftrac Limited. She's also a co-founder of the Women in Energy Network here. And lastly, Dr. Ibilola Amao. She is an Executive Director also at Lonadek Incorporated. She, alongside Mrs. Patricia Simon-Hart, they are co-founders of the Women in Energy Network here in Nigeria. So without much ado, you're welcome to our virtual panel session here in Nigeria titled Local Solutions, Global Impact, Geothermal in Nigeria. So we are going to have a few minutes for the panelists to introduce themselves, starting from Professor Emudianuge. Thank you very much. Mark?
Okay, good day to everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Juliet Emudianuge, Professor of Exploration Geophysics and Director of Strategic Plan and Implementation, Federal University of Petroleum Resources. It's nice being here, and I'll be talking much on how the geoscience society and academia can foster the research leading from hydrocarbon to heat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Over to you, Mr. Elliot.
Yeah, thank you, Princewill. Good afternoon. My name is Elliot. I'm the president of the Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists. It's the largest geoscience association in Nigeria and Africa. It's about 10,000 man strong. And the purpose is around building and supporting the practice of geosciences and other disciplines in Nigeria, across the industry and also the academia. My focus really is on supporting initiatives such as these to ensure overall energy sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Over to you, to Dr. Amao.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. My name is Dr. Ibilola Amao. I'm the principal consultant at Lonadek Global Services. We're an engineering technology, asset performance, and information management company, ISO certified, and we've been in business for over 33 years. I'm very passionate about STEM talent, girls in STEM becoming women in engineering, energy, and entrepreneurship. And I'm very, very passionate about bridging the gap between industry and academia. So I'm going to be looking at the workforce of tomorrow and how we can leverage the capacity, capability, and competence we've developed in the oil and gas industry to address geothermal energy solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And lastly, Mrs. Simon-Hart.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to this, be part of this session. My name is Patricia Simon-Hart. I have a background in information communication technology, but moved into the oil and gas sector, and I run an oil and gas service sector, which is focused on introducing technology to the industry to optimize production and performance of operations. I'm also very passionate about women in the energy sector and trying to ensure more women get involved. And so very passionate about diversity in the sector. I'm also an independent non-executive director at Aradel, which is one of the first indigenous EMP companies in Nigeria, formerly known as Niger Delta Exploration and Production. So yes, passionate about technology, passionate about new technology and introducing it into the sector. But also I had a stint in the water sector, so also very interested in sustainable development and how we can use our natural resources to improve the well-being of individuals in general. Yes, so sustainable development and poverty alleviation in the nation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. So here's a lineup of everyone. Of course, we could all go check them up on LinkedIn to know more. But a very much special thing about everyone in this panelist session is they are from all walks of life. We have the academia, we have the indigenous oil and gas companies, we have the multinational oil and gas companies with Elliot, and who also has happens to sit on the network of the largest oil and gas practicing professionals in the whole of Africa. And we also have a representative from the women in Energy Network, which is a very, very good avenue in pivoting into geothermal. So without further much ado, as everyone knows, the whole world knows that Nigeria is not really the powerhouse in geothermal, but for what we are lacking for, we have gotten at the other side, and which is the oil and gas expertise. So everyone seated at this panel is having decades, except me, of course, I'm still young, all have decades-long experiences in oil and gas. So they are basically here to let us know from their various works of life how they could be able to transit, how they can be able to pivot, how the necessary skills in oil and gas can be applied. So starting with Professor Juliet, she sits at a major tri-junction. She represents the gender equally. She's a professor of exploration geophysics, and she has experiences with exploring for oil and gas. So she's going to let us know in a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, how the academia, how institutions can be able to convince young professional students to be able to apply their oil and gas skills into geothermal to make Nigeria to put Nigeria on the geothermal map. Thank you very much, Ma.
Okay, thank you, Princewill. Thank you for the question. For the students, I think geothermal energy is gaining prominence worldwide as a sustainable energy and environmentally friendly source of power and generation. Nigeria, with this prudent geothermal potential, we have the potential, just that we are not really running with it now. It's in a position to harness this energy source, not only for local development, but also to contribute to global efforts in mitigating climate change. So in this context, we're talking about local solutions, global impact, that underscores the importance of Nigeria's geothermal sector, which we need to really drive. And in doing this, it's important to know that the identification and assessment of specific geothermal sites require thorough geological surveys and exploration studies to determine the resource size, temperature, and sustainability. These studies help in selecting the most suitable locations for geothermal power plants. Additionally, local environmental and social considerations may be taken into account during the planning and development of geothermal projects to ensure their sustainability and community acceptance. And in doing this, we need the research. And in the research, we need the students, because you can't work like a faculty, you can't work alone, you need your fellow colleagues, you need the students to be on board. So we need the students to really be on board on this and convincing them and making them to realize that, yes, we're having energy transition, moving from hydrocarbon to heat. So if we can put that in the right perspective, I'm sure that will be taken. And in the academy, we have courses also that specialize for petroleum, which you can really come out and be able to put some together. Like we have a treasure exploration, geophysics, treasure geology, global tectonics, geology of Nigeria, geodynamics, structural geology, well log analysis and formation evaluation, drilling engineering. We can make this impute this geothermal aspect into some of that, and at the postgraduate level, be able to come up with courses that specialize also that purely for geothermal, so that business will look at this and be able to have the interest in running with this. And with that, I'm sure we'll go a long way. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Matt. Just to chip in what she said, I'm a very huge testament of what academic could do with respect to pivoting into geothermal. Of course, just in 2 seconds, I studied applied geophysics in my BSc and exploration in my master's. So during my BSc, Dr. Abraham encouraged me, and the role pivots, the role geoscience paved for me to move into geothermal was so enormous to have made me to have founded the first geoenergy startup in the whole of West Africa. So it's the academia is, because at the end of the day, we have a lot of experienced individuals, experienced professionals in the oil and gas industries. At the end of the day, taking us through the next decades, it is the young professionals, the students now, who, given the right training, will be able to pivot. Thank you very much. And we're speaking with students and young professionals. We know that the women, the female gender, are moving into the tech space, the energy space, and the likes. And that can be an avenue. It could be called an uncharted territory. It seems like they have just landed on the moon, and they could literally claim the area for themselves. So I'll be letting Dr. Amao let us know. She's an engineer by trade, and she's a doctor, how the organization she founded, which is WIEN, Women in Energy Network, can help foster the transition from let's say, from the oil and gas space to the geothermal space. The floor is yours, Matt. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm the principal consultant at Lonadek Global Services, which I founded 33 years ago, but I'm a co-founder of the Women in Energy Network, which was co-founded in 2020 with Patricia Simon-Hart, who is on this call, as well as Fumi Ogboe. So I'm going to be speaking from Lonadek and WIEN's perspective. I just wanted to put things in context. So from my position of interest, which is bridging the gap between industry and academia, I think we really need to look at the curriculum upgrade, which is required to basically improve the quality and quantity of our graduates and enable them have the right skill sets, capacity, capability, and competence to be able to pivot from traditional, conventional sources of energy solutions to non-conventional sources of energy solution, of which geothermal is one in Nigeria. I'm also looking at new types of schools for master's programs and PhD programs, schools of energy and sustainability. And because we're a country that is blessed with mineral and natural resources, we really need to begin to look more in the mining area, as well as the schools of metallurgy, materials and metallurgy, because most of these components that we're going to use for these solutions to ensure we deliver on geothermals are going to require different types of materials and metallurgy. I think that's very important. Then in terms of energy security, energy transition, and energy systems, we're going to have to look at rejigging our curriculum. The traditional curriculums of chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, electronic engineering is quite, in looking at education in silos, is no longer tenable. Globally, people are beginning to look at integrated engineering curriculums and integrated engineering solutions, where digital transformation is tied into science, technology, engineering, and maths. This involves us looking at holistic solutions. So take, for example, if you're going to provide a geothermal solution, we're going to be having to integrate that into an existing on-grid system and looking at how we're going to have on-grid, off-grid solutions adding value to the standard grid. And when you're looking at the Internet of Things, you're looking at specific control systems, intelligent control systems, intelligent instrumentations, and digital transformation, gathering data from assets, uploading them to the cloud, and beginning to look at the holistic grid system of Nigeria. You'll be able to decide in particular geographical areas where we have particular sedimentary rocks or igneous rocks, we may begin to look at where are the geothermal good spots, and where are we going to position this kind of solution as opposed to other non-conventional sources of energy. So holistically, we're going to have to look at what the terrain in a country like Nigeria is and determine where off-grid solutions in geothermal are appropriate, ensure we have the right type of educational solutions around those areas so that we're able to practicalize knowledge, and the schools are adjacent to the solutions that we are developing for the future, so that we can ensure that we're addressing the power deficiency we have in a country like Nigeria and energy security. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ma. I'm still going to come back to you. I was still going to come back to you. So, with respect to Mr. Elliot here, as I initially said, he's currently sitting on the largest geoscience memberships in the whole of Africa with respect to oil and gas, of course. And given he is in charge of this network, given he's in charge of this, the oil and gas industry are quite similar, the same exploration processes, the same drilling processes, the same extraction processes, fluid, just that one is thicker than the other. So, Mr. Elliot, how do you think the network you are currently controlling can help contribute to the pivot to geothermal or to a more sustainable energy at the end of the day? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Princewill. I think I missed the first part of the question, but I think the intent is clear. There is around how do we ensure that our collaboration is focused and is deliberate. No one aspect of energy can close the gap. The energy public takes a collaboration across the various aspects. Initiatives, we have discussions around how to bridge that gap. And NAPE, for example, as an association, we have a very robust continuing education program where initiatives such as these, or initiatives around how to and all can be discussed. Our conferences also, for example, are veritable sources of these collaborations. And we also reach across other sister associations, as you know very well, to ensure that we see where the industry is going to, where the academia is going to, and how we can support these various aspects. And also for government, we support, we encourage government initiatives to ensure that there is a collaborative energy sustainability.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Just to summarize what he said, because of the network, I don't know whether it's at my point, but he is literally saying that the NAPE, which is the Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists, are helping in one way or the other to foster this pivot. So at the end of the day, Mrs. Patricia Simon-Hart is very, very in the center of all what we're discussing, because by the time academia speaks, by the time professional organization speaks, by the time non-governmental associations or something like WIEN speaks and set up laws, if the government do not help out, it's going to be in vain per se, because the policy making is key. And this is where Mrs. Patricia Simon-Hart comes in, because she was once a commissioner of water resources at Rivers State at some point, and she had sat down at such seats before. She has brought in grants into Rivers State in Nigeria from the UN, from USAID, from WHO. It's all in her robust CV. So she's going to let us know in a situation whereby the government or policy makers are going to support this move into more sustainable energy, especially from oil and gas. And given that she also has an experience in oil and gas, how do you think the government will go about this to foster the pivot to a more sustainable energy? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Princewill, for that question. I think it's very important. I think that's where Nigeria pivoting into geothermal will start. It has to start with policy. And the government needs to have a clear policy when it comes to the energy mix within Nigeria. So whatever is being developed, in terms of oil and gas, or gas being the transition fuel, as well as looking at solar, as well as looking at hydro and nuclear if they want, or might delve into that as well, depending on the safety and precautions that are there. Geothermal should also be considered as well as part of that energy mix, to understand how we can best harness all the natural resources we have, especially when it comes to sustainable energy for the nation. We know that our energy needs have not been met, and we have a long way to go in trying to meet those needs. And so the more energy that we do produce, the better we become. And so if we do have potential within Nigeria to develop geothermal power. And because of this, it should be considered as part of the energy mix. So looking holistically at everything that can form part of this energy mix within Nigeria, and seeing which is the best way or the cheapest way to bring energy at an affordable price. And that's at the end of the day, we want to try and ensure we have sustainable energy, which means it should be affordable to the people, affordable to everybody. And so only when we can bring everything in and look at, okay, these are the options, that Nigeria can now formulate policies around how we want to develop each and every sector, whether it's oil and gas or this geothermal, or whether it's hydro, whichever way we're going. It's taking a holistic view and then seeing how we can plug into each of those sectors. And I think that can only be done under a single umbrella. Right now, we have several umbrellas. We have oil and gas handling the gas. We have power sector handling power, maybe renewables and renewable energy. We have the water Ministry of Water Resources that handles hydro. So it's a bit disjointed at the moment. And we have nuclear people looking into nuclear, which is NNRA. And so it's a bit disjointed. So if you bring geothermal, it's also another source of energy that has to be addressed. So it would be good to have a single umbrella that would be handling all that will end the entire energy mix, and then have a solution for the nation based on what is available. To do this, they would have to do a lot of research, as we heard from the professor at the beginning. A lot of research is required into geothermal. Yes, we know we have potential, but a lot of research has to be also done to see how much it's going to cost for us to actually harness this potential. Is it going to be too expensive? It has to be affordable, as I said, at the end of the day. So is it going to be too expensive? Is it going to suit our needs? Yes, we will be impacting the global community in terms of trying to reduce carbon emissions if we move to a cleaner energy, and also long term. But we have to look at that as well and see how this is going to benefit us and impact us. In terms of also in terms of training and technology or transfer of this technology and the technology skills, of course, the government has to start right from the cradle, try to build up awareness, apart from that, also to build up the technical skills in the secondary school level and tertiary institutions as well, to make sure that, as we've already heard from Dr. Amao, the curriculum has to change. And so I guess the curriculum at the university level has to change to include all energy, and we should be looking at everything so they can begin to explore the entire value chain or the entire energy mix, so that we can look to see what is the best, what is the sustainable solution for Nigeria, so that we can bring development to every nook and cranny of the nation. I think I'll just stop there for now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll still come back to you, but because of how constrained for time we are, the questions are beginning to drop on the box, so I'll be interjecting them as we proceed. This particular one stands out, and although I know who will answer it more directly, but we will have 30 seconds each to chip into it, because it's a very, very conspicuous problem. It's for Mr. Elliot. Nigeria is still in the boom times for oil and gas. And in my experience, when that is the case, geothermal falls behind and fails to get traction. What do these panelists think about how to catalyze a geothermal ecosystem when the oil and gas is an upswing in a developing economy? I'm very sure as an asset leader at Shell, you could be able to let us know in just 30 seconds, just 1 or 2 sentences. Thank you.
Thanks, Princewill, and thanks
what
for the.
Do this? Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Princewill, and
Right,
it's a great question around how to sustain the gains that we already have in the fossil fuel industry, while going ahead to ensure that we look for other and we harness other aspects of energy. And as other panelists have said in the last few minutes, is really around ensuring a collaboration. So I think the bottom line is for us to ensure that we can harness the gains that we already have, while looking forward to the newer ways of doing things. Well, I think one thing to note though, Princewill, is around improved understanding, improved knowledge. So across the industry, across the academia, and across even with the government, we need to ensure that the gains of renewables are also very clear, and we can begin to work together to make that again more apparent.
All right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Amao, what do you think about how to catalyze a geothermal ecosystem when the oil and gas is an upswing in a developing economy?
Okay, thank you so much. I would recommend we have a strategic plan, and you can't have a strategic plan without data. And the first point of call is, how do we scan the landscape of our environment, and how do we optimize the mineral and natural resources we have? And how do we consolidate the various silo ministries we have that are in charge of different dimensions of this? We need to gather data to understand the geographical locations in Nigeria and which areas are power poor, and what's the cost-benefit analysis of investing in geothermal in the areas where geothermal energy is available. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. Professor Juliet, let me quickly move on to the next questions because of time. I guess this one should be for you. The person said, to what extent is geothermal on the radar of the general population in Nigeria? That's the first part. Then the second part is, how much about geothermal resource is available in Nigeria? Is geothermal really interesting here because of the oil and gas activity, or is it because of the exceptional resources, or is it because of both factors?
Okay, thank you. If I can get you clearly, the first one you're talking about.
What extent is geothermal on the radar?
Okay, in Nigeria, really, I can say we are at zero level in Nigeria for geothermal. We have not really done much for geothermal. I know some few research here and there has been done, but not really much. But I'm sure going forward, a lot of work needs to be done, and that is where the academia and geoscience community will come into play. And looking at hydrocarbon, okay, yes, we are fully oil and gas country, but we can do more in the sense that we can look at the hydrocarbon industry, oil and gas industry, and look at some wells. Some wells can be repurposed. And looking at these locations, the northern part, we have some hot springs. It can be good. The southern part also can be good, because we can look at some wells that can be repurposed for geothermal. And there are things that you need to do, looking at moving from hydrocarbon to heat. Like pressured oil wells can potentially be repurposed for geothermal energy production. But it's complex process that. Hello, you were trying to say something?
Yeah, you're continue.
Oh, okay. So, but it's complex. It depends on several factors, including the geological conditions of the wells, reservoir characterizations, and the availability of infrastructure. So, for instance, we can say, yes, we are oil and gas, but how can we make use of what is available to be able to get this geothermal running? Because now we have issues of energy in Nigeria. So the geothermal might not be able to serve the entire country, but where are the areas that it can serve, and some communities that it can serve? So we can look at repurposing some wells that we can do well assessments. First, the oil wells can be assessed to determine its suitability for geothermal use. Not all the wells can be used, but some can be used. Then factors such as well depth, the temperature, the pressure, the geological conditions, which can be evaluated. And a pressure oil well with high temperatures and are suitable for reservoir calculation is more likely to serve that purpose than any other one. Then at the same time too, they can do well modification. You can do well modification, which okay.
Thank you very much. Well, that basically answers the question to the person who asked, because he's trying to ask, is there a difference, or is it because there's oil and gas and that's why we're talking about geothermal? No, there's a similarity between both. The same technical expertise, the same knowledge, the same whatsoever. It's just with respect to the resource that is coming out. So as she said here, it could even be both. So we can be talking about geothermal, we can be talking about oil and gas in both sentences, because we can repurpose spent oil and gas wells, probably those ones that are waterlogged, and use them to generate probably low enthalpy electricity and the likes. And for Mrs. Patricia Simon-Hart, this question is literally for you, because let's take, for instance, you're in the government, and at the end of the day, the government are the ones who fund projects like this, who fund initiatives like this. What do you, this particular question says, what will be the best first application of geothermal in the Nigerian energy market? Is it heat? Is it cooling? Is it electricity? Is it agriculture? Is it industrial heat? Are there any currently developed projects now? I will answer the latter part, so you just answer the first part. I guess you're muted, Ma.
Yes, sorry about that. As I said, I guess it's clear that there aren't any projects, but I think it's time pilot projects can be done based on the geology and where geothermal sites. I think that's clear where they could be actually sited. And from the little research that I have done, I don't think they can be sited in the same areas. But at the end of the day, when government is trying to consider investment projects, and yes, geothermal hits all the boxes when it comes to sustainable development, whether it's affordable and clean energy, or it's climate action, or work ethics and economic growth. It does tick the boxes. But at the same time, we have scarce resources as it stands. And so if you're a government with scarce resources, you'll try and invest your resources in areas that will have maximum impact. And I think that's one of the considerations anytime government is spending when they look at their budgets. Where can we have maximum impact with the least amount to be spent in that area? And so government will look in those areas. But it doesn't stop pilots being handled in certain areas where we already know there's high potential for geothermal energy. And I know in Nigeria that there are areas where the geological or subsurface structures are really right for that, whether it's high temperature, it's there, or the infrastructure close to the national grid, where they could link it onto the national grid, or have really off-grid kind of solutions for certain communities. That's also possible. However, because of the high technical nature of such projects, it can also be very expensive to implement. But yes, there are areas where this can be implemented indeed. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ma. With respect to what she said, adding to it, of course, we know that the world is divided into two hemispheres, the northern and the southern. So taking Iceland for instance, which is literally the mid-oceanic ridge, during the winter, we know that geothermal can be used for heating. But here in Nigeria, we know it's in a humid part. In fact, the most southernmost part of Nigeria is just 4 degrees above the equator. So we're dealing about heat here. So the most application of geothermal in Nigeria will be for low enthalpy electricity generation, probably using another fluid taking advantage of their lower temperature of boiling to be able to drive turbines. And it could also be used for agriculture in greenhouses and the likes. And this particular question goes to, just in 30 seconds, Dr. Amao. The question says, Have oil and gas entities engaged in any significant way so far that you know about?
Could you repeat that, please?
Have oil and gas entities engaged in any significant way so far, probably in investment, any funding flowing currently? And the following question, okay, will you answer that first?
I think the oil and gas companies are looking at becoming integrated energy companies. And most of them are looking at investment in non-conventional sources of energy. So my take would be either in their R&D phases or their corporate social responsibility or social impact initiatives, they will be looking at alternative energy solutions, off-grid solutions, and they could be partnering with higher learning institutions in R&D and schools of energy and sustainability to explore these options. But I'm not aware of any particular project, just like Patricia said. Thanks.
That's very correct, because the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, the NNPC, have been speaking a lot about carbon capture. So even though they are not really approaching geothermal directly, they are talking about carbon capture and making sure their gas reserves are maximally used so far. So we could see, although it's not that pronounced, although startups as mine are not really that supported per se, but we know that it is something that with a lot of knowledge and a lot of know-how and exposure, they will be able to come around sometimes. So to Dr. Elliot, in 30 seconds, sir, please, we're very constrained for time, because with respect to networking, I'm very sure at the end of the day, NAPE might have a representative at COP28. So this question is directed to you. With COP28 in the horizon, what does this panel hope could emerge from COP that will be helpful in the geothermal development in Nigeria? Let's take, for instance, you were the one who replaced. What are you going to say in COP28? Thank you, sir. Which is in November or so this year at the UAE.
Yeah, thanks, Princewill. I think at the end of the day, the outcome of these of engagements such as COP28 and similar engagement that happened in the past is to build a deliberate roadmap. We need to understand where we are going to. At the end of the day, the trilemma of energy security, sustainability, and affordability have to be matched with a deliberate roadmap of how do we want to get there. It is not, in our view, or in my view, it is not enough to make pronouncements at these engagements, but more around how do we ensure that we have a focused and deliberate roadmap to achieve this. We've had a number of these engagements in the past, and a lot of pronouncements have been made. But if we don't have that roadmap where we can check ourselves and see how do we, and this also has to do with the various enterprises, because the roadmap that works for a developed country, for example, might not work for a less developed country. So we have to ensure that these roadmaps are deliberate and also moderated.
Thank you very much, sir. Just to add to that, Nigeria, of course, have brought out a net zero target of 2060. Of course, they also have a target. I do not know the number specifically for 2030. But according to Nigeria, it's saying that by 2060, there will be net zero and the rest. And if we know that will be possible, our already existing hydroelectric, our enormous supply of solar in the northern part of Nigeria, and including geothermal, which is base load. That word cannot be overemphasized more than this. Base load can also help in this. So with the last, we have just about 5 minutes, so we can get about 30-second summary from everyone, starting from Professor Juliet, answering this specific question concisely in 30 seconds. What do you hope to see over the next decade? Because at the end of the day, pivot is about the change of geothermal over the next decade, starting from 2020. We have had pivots 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. So over the next decade, from 2030 and above, what do you see? What do you hope to see over the next decade with regard to geothermal development in Nigeria? 30 seconds, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Prof?
you.
Okay.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have spoken a lot. We're talking about harnessing collaboration, talking about having all the data, talking about power problems, talking about the roadmap and all that. So in next decades, I hope to see an alternative energy research lab, because we can't do all this without a proper research. So, and I hope if a research lab can be established and we carry out a detailed research, I'm sure we can go somewhere with geothermal alternative energy at the end of the day. And I hope that, like when I was back coming for this meeting, hello, just a minute, I was able to talk with my vice chancellor and he equally approved that, fine, if we can get a collaboration, a research grant to be able to establish an alternative energy lab in our university, I'm sure we'll be able to do a lot. Thank you. So in the next 10 years, I see us doing so.
Geophysics is coming from the first petroleum dedicated university in Africa. So if we are talking about this pivoting, it's actually coming from where the skills are being housed. So I guess it's very true if an alternative energy lab is located there, using the oil and gas skills directly and side by side, progress will be made during the next decade. Over to you, Ms. Patricia Simon-Hart. What change do you see? Do you hope to see within the next decade? 30 seconds, please, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks. Well, as we know, Nigeria is already committed and aligned to global push for net zero and climate mitigating climate change. As a nation, and we're also committed to a sustainable future as well as development for our populace. So that's very, very important to keep in mind. At the same time, Nigeria already has a critical mass in terms of technical skills, which can be transferred to the geothermal sector. However, what Nigeria needs to do is have an overall energy strategy and which will incorporate an energy mix based on research and development and financial modeling going forward to the future. I think that's what Nigeria needs to do. So they have a specific roadmap and strategy for energy for the nation, which will be affordable to and accessible to everybody. So thank you very much.
So, Mr. Elliot, what do you hope to see in the next decade with respect to geothermal development in Nigeria? 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, thanks, Princewill. I think like all panelists have said, we have a Nigerian energy transition plan. And one of the things that we would like to see going forward is to ensure that that plan, actually around achieving net zero by 2060, that plan begin to work towards it deliberately. And there's also the issue around improved education. More insights on the renewables and improved overall improved educational curriculum. We have to also set realistic projections, ensure improved collaboration, and ensure that yes, all aspects of the energy mix come together to help in that journey towards overall energy sustainability.
Thank you very much. I picked something from your word, Mr. President, and that was in the part of saying a realistic timeline, because I was at Kenya last year for their first geothermal congress, and during the timeline of their geothermal development, they went decades without any geothermal from their first wells, without any geothermal progress whatsoever. So it's not something that can literally, especially here that the oil and gas is so overshadowing, but within the next decade, as for me, if there are progress in roadmaps, policies that people can be accepted into to make this change, if startups can be supported, if young professionals can be advised and say, instead of you going into oil and gas and the rest, could you do your research, could you do your PhD thesis in geothermal and the likes? We are very much sure that within the next decade, Nigeria will be able to gain its feet, and we are going to be faster because we have the technical expertise to move with respect to this topic. And that's the end of our panelist session from here in Nigeria. I sincerely appreciate everyone for taking out the time. Most of us are not even here in the country, but it's very, very perfect. And we hope that by next year, we'll be able to come with considerable progress and considerable accomplishments with respect to geothermal and renewable energy in Nigeria. Thank you very much for everyone who took its time to attend, and hope to see you some other time. Thank you. Bye.